Symmetry. So for today's class, I have a tiny PowerPoint prepared, so I'm going to switch that over real fast. Hi, everyone. All right. I also have a model for today's class. Reika's going to be here again. But before we get into that, I just wanted to go over the basics of eyebrows in general and why they matter for facial symmetry and also for gender expression. So, why are eyebrows important? So, one of the first things that people notice about you tends to be your eyes and eyebrow area, especially because we use those for making facial expressions and also for communicating with each other nonverbally. Um, as a result, the eyes and brows are the first thing that people will notice. Um, and they're also going to be crucial to facial symmetry and balance. So, for example, if your eyebrows are properly shaped, it can balance your eyes if they're like too small or if they're wide set or hooded by adding dimension or length or lift to the face in order to kind of create a little bit more symmetry or balance to the facial features. Your brow area is also one of the most common facial features that can dramatically masculinize or feminize a face as well. So, different eyebrow shapes. These are going to be important for depending on your face shape as well as your gender expression as well. An arched eyebrow is going to be perceived typically as more feminine, a classic shape with a defined peak, usually tapering at the ends. This one has a couple of variations to it. A high arch, that's going to be a little bit more dramatic, a more pronounced arch, and that one's going to lift and elongate. A lower arch is gonna be a gentler version of that. Sometimes they can almost be a little bit straighter as well, but it's a little bit more approachable than a high arch tends to be. A soft angled arch, that one's just gonna kind of be a little bit more rounded and pointier at the arch. Hard angle, that one's gonna be a sharper version of that. Rounded, this kind of eyebrow shape is going to be more soft curve in general. You're not gonna have angles typically. And this is typically used for people who have more like square, boxy kind of face shapes to kind of create a softness to the face without accentuating angular face shapes. Straight brows, those tend to be more of a horizontal line with not really too many bends. So they tend not to be very angled, very arched, or very rounded. These look really great on folks who have longer face shapes. These also tend to be perceived typically as more masculine, as the brow tends to fall below the orbital bone in more masculine styles. S-shaped brows tend to have a curve that dips slightly before rising into the arch. This one, I'll have a couple of different photo examples as well, because this one's a little bit more dramatic, but it's kind of, think of it kind of like an arch, but it has a little bit of a bend in the very beginning of it. Now, this is an example of the golden ratio when it comes to brows. So you'll see here where the brow ends. Typically, it aligns with the outer corner of the eye itself. Where it begins tends to align itself either with the beginning of the eye or with the nostril itself, depending on your face shape. And where it tends to arch tends to be in a line that aligns with the outside edge of either the pupil or the iris itself. So here's examples of the ones that I just kind of described to you. You have arched right here. You can see how it tends to angle up and have a bit more of a point here. Rounded, there isn't much of that point right there. It tends to just completely go in a loop itself. S-shaped, you'll notice how it has this beginning kind of swoop before it goes into that arch again. Straight tends to go straight across. I have a longer face shape myself, so mine tend to be a little bit of a blend between either straight or upward. Steep arch, that's going to be a little bit more of a high arch or a dramatic version of the arched look. and upward is kind of a variation, like I said, kind of between straight and arched. Here's an example of different eyebrow styles on different face shapes. Now, this works for both masculinizing and feminizing effects as well. So, depending on how you want your facial symmetry to be observed, these are different ways you can accentuate or complement your facial features. So, if you have an oval face, so it's not quite too long, but it is going to be more like the distance between the cheeks is shorter, whereas the length between the top of the forehead to the chin is longer. You can do either a short arch or even like a straight brow. This tends to be how I do my own, as I do have an oval face shape or a heart face shape. Round, you want to add, since you are a rounder shape, you want to add a little bit more dimension or complement the facial features by adding a little bit of an angularity to it. It's going to give you a little bit more dimensionality. Oblong, that's gonna be, an even longer facial shape. You'll notice how it accentuates it by going straighter across and kind of shortening, um, or kind of complementing the length of the face by shortening it. Square facial shapes, again, they tend to be a little bit more angular or rounder because you're trying to soften the pointiness of the facial features. You're softening the facial features. If you have a more triangular shape or very angular shape in general, again, you're gonna go with rounder look. And if you have more of a diamond face shape or very angular features, again, you can go for a soft arch again. So choosing the correct brow shape for your face shape will just add to your facial balance and add the correct dimension that you need. When you choose the wrong shape, it can kind of throw your facial proportions out of balance or emphasize features that you don't want to. So, like if you had a square face and you had very angular eyebrows, it might emphasize the angles of your jawbone, for example. Here's an example of a model using all the different eyebrow techniques. So, I would say she has a very ovular or long face shape. So, doing something like this is actually very flattering on her, where she has a soft arch. Round, it kind of emphasizes the roundness of her face. That can be kind of cute for like a vintage look, but for her face shape, I would say this probably isn't something she would want to go for on a regular basis. This one, again, similar to this one, it's going to be more of a straight brow. So it is actually kind of accentuating her facial features. Although, frankly, I think this one is slightly more complimentary because it has a little bit of an angularness to it that kind of offsets the roundness or the curves that she tends to have in her facial features. This one is kind of nice. I would say probably not for her face shaped though. This one I actually quite like a lot as well. It is going to be a rounded arch. So that one also looks quite nice on her. This one also looks very nice, having a little bit of that angularity, a little bit more dramatic version of this first picture. So that one also works for her face shape, and it also shortens the distance between her forehead a little bit more and brings a little bit more balance into her face. This one does not work for her facial shape. Unfortunately, as cute as it is, I do like a good straight brow, but on her facial shape itself, having a little bit of a round or an angle to it or an uplifted version of this would look a lot nicer. This one also looks nice. Again, that's more of a straight brow. For her having a more oblong or a ovular face shape, I would say give it a little bit more of an arch to it. So even if you're not going to use makeup, just refining the shape can make a huge difference. So this was a Reddit post I found specifically for the trans community, talking about different struggles that we have in our community as well, and especially with the brow bone area for a lot of trans women tends to be a feature for a lot of discomfort or dysphoria, and how just refining the eyebrows itself can really help a lot with gender euphoria or helping in general to really clean up that kind of shape and be a lot more feminizing. The inverse is also true for a lot of trans folks in the other direction if you're going more for a masculine look. So if you wanted to have more of a masculine look, you're going to want the hair to fall more below the orbital bone. So letting your eyebrows grow out more, and you can even draw in hair lower as well. But if you're looking for a slightly more feminine look, you're going to want your hair to fall above the rim of the orbital bone. Brow space in general is going to be increased as well for if you're doing more elaborate makeup looks. So notice how this doesn't really allow for a lot of room to play around with doing makeup looks. By adding a little bit more space here, not only is it making the distance between here and here complement the forehead space a little bit better as well, and giving a little bit more symmetry and balance to the features, but it also allows you a little bit more space to play with makeup and eyeliner and other things as well if you wanted to. But it also lifts and opens the eye area. There are a couple of different grooming methods for eyebrows as well, one of the most popular being waxing. This is typically done, you can do this yourself, but it's typically done in a professional setting where they apply wax to the brow area and remove it very quickly. And it kind of takes a lot of hair out all in one go. So it has the benefit of taking a lot of hair out at once versus individually taking hairs out. It'll take larger areas of hair out. And because it removes the hair out from the root, it actually lasts for a long time as well. The only downside is it may cause a little bit of redness or irritation. And if you do have sensitive skin, sometimes I would recommend against it unless you have a sensitive skin wax specific to you. Threading is another technique as well. This is a technique where you use a twisted piece of thread to pluck hairs along the brow line. This is a very precise and quick method, and it does give a really nice, clean, and defined shape. It does also kind of like waxing have the con of giving you redness or irritation or being a little bit more painful actually than waxing or tweezing for some, not all. Personally, I've had my eyebrows threaded before and it was about as painful as waxing. It's just a little bit, instead of taking it all in one go, it tends to take up a lot of hair off more so than tweezing would, but less so than waxing would. Brow lamination is a little bit more of a newer way to actually take care of the brows as well. So this is a non-invasive treatment that uses kind of like a perm-like solution to literally straighten your eyebrows and shape them to the style that you want. So this is actually a really great method for people who have very unruly or very wiry hairs that they have a hard time managing themselves. So having it chemically managed that way to where it's straightened out, it's a lot easier to manage. It'll also create a fuller, more defined brow and last for several weeks. And you can also have the benefit of combining it with other treatments like waxing or tinting as well. The only downside is this has to be done by a professional. You do have to do this in a salon, which may not be suitable for everyone, especially if it's not something in your budget or if you do have sensitive skin. I wouldn't recommend this method. Microblading is something else that has been more popular in recent years, where you basically get semi-permanent makeup um, and doing hair-like strokes to your brow. And it does create a really nice, full, natural-looking brow. And it's also great for people who have perhaps over tweezed their eyebrows or have sparse hair. This method has also been more popular recently with trans men as well who have perhaps over tweezed or over plucked their eyebrows before transitioning and want to have that full brow. Um, this is also useful for people who just in general have sparse eyebrows or really want less maintenance when it comes to doing their eyebrows as well. The only downside is obviously that would require a salon visit from a professional. It is a bit expensive as well, and the results are semi-permanent, not necessarily permanent, so they do fade a little bit over time. Tweezing is probably the most popular method that we all use, where we pluck individual hairs with tweezers to change the shape and remove stray hairs. Personally, I like or I recommend getting your eyebrows waxed or threaded by a professional and then maintaining or using it to upkeep what they've done because that takes the guesswork for you out of making the golden ratio on yourself and making it symmetrical for yourself. And then that way you're able to just maintain it. It does give you precise control and allow for natural looking shapes. Um, the only downside is it can be time consuming and it is quite painful sometimes, especially um, if you have deeper rooted hair follicles. When it comes to cosmetics and how to use those to manage your eyebrows, I do like to use a little spoolie brush to brush your brows upwards and then trim any long hairs with scissors. So this is another way to upkeep them um, in coordination with using tweezing, for example. I also recommend using brow products to outline and fill the brow and then reshape them, especially if you have any sparse areas or if you wanted to make your eyebrows seem a little thicker or fuller as well. Brow gels and waxes are also a great technique, especially for when you're doing more masculinizing looks. I find that using a brow gel kind of coats and makes your eyebrow hair to look a lot thicker, a lot fuller. This is also great for trans women who want low maintenance brows who have already maintained their brows pretty well and they don't feel like they need to use a brow pencil, for example. You can easily just throw on some brow gel and it'll lock it in place and it'll look really nice for the rest of the day as well. Eyebrow mapping, they tend to use that for when you're doing waxing or threading or any kind of technique, even tweezing, where you basically use that golden ratio in order to map where you want the start of your brow, the end of your brow, and the arch of your brow, and basically create the shaping process. Oftentimes, people just use a brow pencil to map out their brows before they even start tweezing or waxing. These are examples of some eyebrow cosmetics. So you have powder, or you can even use eyeshadow for a soft and natural look and fill it in without super harsh definition, make that like no makeup look. Um, Pomades, this would be an example of like the Anastasia Dip Brow Pomade. That's going to give you precise and defined coverage. This is more for if you want that really defined, sleek brow. Pencil, you can kind of get a little bit of both with the pencil. You'll get soft and defined depending on how you use the pencil. That's what we're going to show you how to do today with Reika today. Wax to hold eyebrow hairs in place. I also like to use wax when I'm trimming the hair as well. And gel, again, to hold the eyebrow hairs in place. And it's basically like a mascara for your brows. And then more recently, we've been having a lot of pens, like eyebrow pens, that actually help you to draw in individual hairs, especially in the sparse areas. I definitely like to use this one when I'm doing more masculine looks as well. So that's the end of my presentation for now. We're going to switch over and actually start with the demo. All right. So real fast before I switch to Reika, what I've done for my eyebrows today, for example, for my face shape, I have more of a heart-faced shape or heart-shaped face. So I tend to have my brows arch just a little bit, but they tend to be more straight with a tiny arch and the end about right here. And notice how they start going down towards where the tip of my nose before the nostril is in order to pull them together and make my nose a little bit more narrow as well. Now let's switch. Yes. All right. So on her, I've already taken the liberty of doing this brow. So let's zoom in on her just a little bit. So you'll notice how this one, I've essentially defined up to here, I've created a little bit of a line here. So you can easily see, for example, by using like a makeup brush or something, right here, going down towards the edge of the nose, and then from here to the corner of the nose. And then she's looking straight ahead. So right here is where that arch begins, going down. And notice how on the other side, her natural brow tends to go slightly below the orbital bone, which is going to be a little bit more masculinizing. Whereas when I actually go and remove that hair, it's going to help to create a softer look and also create more facial balance, like on this side. So you notice how there's a lot more space, her eye is a lot more lifted and open. And it also, the balance is a little bit better for her forehead and the rest of her face as well. It opens up that eye area. It makes the brow bone seem less heavy. Sorry, I'm going to see if you have any questions. Send you a pic of my face and you like edit it to tell me what to do. Yeah. I have a entire thread called Cosmetics with Sara. Let's see. Or Makeup with Sara, excuse me. And if you want to submit photos there, I'd be happy to do like little assessments. It should be under the classes sub tab. There should be a Makeup with Sara. And I like to respond in there. But yeah, that way I can give you a little bit of advice personally. We also do one-on-one makeup lessons as well. Makes it a little bit easier as well. Those ones are paid though. These ones are unpaid. These ones are just charity classes. And then if you wanted to do like full-on consultations, I do take those privately as well. So before I get super into this, a couple things I like to use when maintaining eyebrows are eyebrow scissors, a nice clean spoolie brush, tweezers, and I actually like to use brow gel, like a clear brow wax or brow gel, to actually kind of manipulate the eyebrow hairs. So I'll show you what I'm going to do in a second here. So I'll take a tiny bit of this onto that spoolie. And kind of pull it through the eyebrow itself. So you can really see how long these eyebrow hairs really are. And from there, I like to take the eyebrow scissors and gently trim them. Now, if we were going in the other direction and trying to masculinize, I'd actually want to sweep this eyebrow hair downwards in order to drag the brow bone downwards and give it a little bit more heaviness. notice how this side is going to be a little bit more um, downwards compared to the other side. That tends to come across a little bit more masculine. And then from there, like I did in my masculinizing makeup class, I would just take an actual tinted product or even some pencil, and again, keep going in downward motions. But since we're trying to be feminine today, we're going to match the other side. Although I am, look down for me, going to brush it down just to trim it a little bit more. You guys are able to see everything okay? Now, when you're trying to do feminizing eyebrows, you pretty much never want to take away too much from the top of the brow unless you're trying to create an angle. And the reason is typically when you are assigned male at birth, your forehead tends to be a lot larger just due to secondary sex characteristics and how they manifest, along with the brow bone. So, in order to kind of do basically FFS, but with makeup, you're going to basically make sure that your eyebrows stay as high up as they can be. You're not going to detract from the top. You're going to want to pull from the bottom instead in order to create that lift and that feminization. Again, it's about facial proportions, and a lot of gender expression, a lot of our gender identity tends to come from proportions, or at least how they're perceived. Another thing you can use too is like a little dermaplaning razor. Just make sure that you're always sanitizing these in between using them. And the only time I'm going to use that on the top here is to get rid of a little bit of baby hairs. And also the front of the brow. Again, I'm not taking off any of the actual brow itself, only the baby hairs. And then from there, I'm just going to take off from the bottom, keeping in mind those facial elements. So making sure the tail end is ending here. The beginning is ending here. And the arch is about right here. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to start tweezing.
I have something to say to you.
What's up?
Congrats.
Oh my God. We got breakfast earlier and I was really awkward. This lady said that she was going to celebrate Mother's Day by getting her nails done. And I was like, congrats for some reason. I don't know why I was awkward like that. instead of just being like, "Oh, that's nice." I was like, "Congrats."
Mhm.
Why did I say that? We were smart and decided to go get breakfast at like 8:30 a.m. before everyone and their grandmas and their moms started filling up the place.
Good breakfast too.
It was really good, yeah. I got some strawberry French toast. Very good. How's everybody else spending their Mother's Day? Let's see. Take a tiny bit more off. Now, Rika's eyebrows naturally grow a little bit straight. So we're adding a tiny bit of an arch to it because her face is a little more longer. There's actually let me see if I can pull it up for you. A TikTok filter. There used to be one from L'Oreal that was really good that would show you actually what your eyebrow shape should be based off of your face shape. But I don't think it works, at least for me in the US. Let me see. It's called Eyebrows, created by Grace M. Choi. And this is me, for example, using it earlier. It actually shows you where your eyebrow should start, where the arch should be, and where the tail should end. So me just freehanding my brows, I tend to draw them straighter just out of how they grow naturally. So the arch is a little bit high for me unless I raised my eyebrows. But I was able to have them start at the same line and end at the same line symmetrically. So I do recommend it if you want to actually see the golden ratio on your own face. This is what it looks like. And for Reika, on the other eyebrow, kind of showing how we started it. But because her eyebrows grow to here, the end point isn't quite exactly where I'd like it to be, but that's as close as I can get it naturally. So now the hardest part is going to be matching this eyebrow or this eyebrow with this eyebrow. If you still can't find it, you're always welcome to DM me privately, and I'll totally be happy to help you with that too. More than happy.
Extraordinarily happy.
Extraordinarily. I actually enjoy going on to Procreate and kind of taking pictures you guys have sent me. Um, you might need to actually take the cosmetics class role, I believe. It might be that case. Because if you haven't selected like cosmetics student, it might be hidden for you. Rory, are you able to send a link in the chat for it? Let me see if I can real fast. It's okay, don't worry. Oh, it's hidden for me for some reason when I try to paste it. Let me see if I can message it to you after the stream if that's okay. Yeah, please DM me. We're looking closer. Sorry, I know your eyes want to water. All right, let's see. I think we got it. I'm gonna take this one eyebrow off from the top though. Just because she's like coming up. All right. So now we have the shape pretty much good to go. But you can notice that because Reka is quite fair as well, the eyebrow hairs themselves are quite blonde, and we want them to stand out a little bit more.
I think the fairest one of them all.
The fairest of them all.
It's a bunch of bullshit, but sure. I'll take it.
So I'm going to use an Anastasia brow pencil. I do recommend the Anastasia brand or the Benefit brand. I do like them quite a lot for eyebrows, especially if you have a humid climate or environment. They tend not to sweat off or rub off as easily. So I tend to use gentle strokes going through the eyebrow itself.
Hey, sorry, I had to be sarcastic last one.
It's okay. And then the back end has a spoolie on it as well that you can use to blend it out. Now, a big mistake that a lot of people make is using a brow product that is darker than their eyebrow hairs. And the reason that's a mistake is because it can age you. And it also tends to come across a lot harsher because you can't actually see the individual eyebrow hairs as easily. So by using something that is slightly lighter than her eyebrow hair, I'm able to create gentle definition without taking away from her natural eyebrow hairs. Let's turn this silly just a little bit. Now you also want to make sure that the very beginning of the brow is not too harsh and dark. So you tend to use a spoolie brush in the very beginning and back and forth motions to blend out the beginning of the brow to make it softer. Yeah, Ronnie, you can always message me or DM me and I'll be happy to help you. We can even go in like video chat and actually have hands-on advice based off of the makeup you have at hand as well. And I can even recommend products based off your country for your specific needs as well. I'm just taking a tiny bit of concealer onto the back of my hand and using a flat brush that is almost like a fingernail shape. And I'm going to use that to define the brows a little bit more. And that should also help with any redness that might have occurred as a result of us actually tweezing. Lean forward just a little. Perfect. So we're starting to get a little bit more symmetry in there. Just so you know, too, we have all of our older makeup lessons recorded as well. And I do have an eyeliner class. I could happily link that to you, especially if you DM me. I'd be happy to send those all over to you if you're wanting to watch any of those, especially for different eye shapes and face shapes as well, taking all of that into account. I'm just setting this with powder right now. I don't even have anything on the brush really for the powder. It's just enough to kind of set the concealer and a little bit of the waxiness of the brow pencil. Now I'm going to take a brow wax or just a brow mascara, basically, brow gel, and pull it through Reika's eyebrows just to tint those hairs and also lock the shape into place because we do have some wiry hairs that are a little unruly and we want to make sure they're locked into place. I also have a brow pen here just to fill in this one little area that is missing a tiny bit of hair. And it's going to look like hair strokes. How are we feeling?
Awesome.
Do you want to take a look?
Spot on.
I'm just going to put a tiny bit more brow gel on this side too, just to match it a little more.
So you know how I like to tell jokes and everything?
Mm-hmm.
But poop jokes are really not my favorite. I'm kind of above that, but they're a solid number 2.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what this looks like in that filter again. So Rika has not had FFS, but I feel like we've definitely kind of made this brow structure look a lot less harsh and kind of added some definition to the brows, created more space for the eyelid itself, and given it a tiny bit of a rounded arch that it didn't have before because it was just straight and down before. Let's see. How close are you?
Pretty close.
So with the brow mapping, we were able to get pretty spot on. I will say though that just based off of the app itself, it does tend to put your arch a little bit higher. But to be fair, Reika and I both have a little bit straighter eyebrows in general, just based off how they grow. Anybody have any questions so far?
I was gonna say that's the only thing straight about me.
That's the only thing straight about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's make the full picture here. And the nice thing too is with Reika's hair and her face, using products like the Anastasia products that are a little bit more sturdy when it comes to humidity and weather and friction, and then setting it with powder means that it's not going to come off with her hair rubbing against it the rest of the day at work. Does anybody have any questions about Browsy so far? Oh, here are your glasses.
That would help also.
Honestly, choosing like eyewear itself is as much of a chore when it comes to complementing your face shape as your
Mhm.
eyebrows too. Keeping those kind of things in mind, they kind of go hand in hand actually. So by your eyewear being a little bit more straight, it kind of actually shows off the actual curve of your eyebrows now. Normally I do eyeshadow, but because we were doing an eyebrow look today, we just did dramatic, like a graphic wing or a bold wing for Rika today, just where we wouldn't have to worry about the foundation or concealer getting on top of eyeshadow and having to blend that all out all over again. But we do have our older classes saved in our YouTube channel, just Trans Academy VODs. I can send those in the chat as well. So we've done a class on feminizing makeup, masculinizing makeup. We've done it on eyeshadow, eyeliner. We've done it on foundation. Probably next class we could do a lip class. We've also done a little bit of contouring. If you have any requests too, I'm totally open and I love hearing feedback from everyone, especially if there's any like specific concerns I can address or like common questions and answers I can address as well. Makeup is definitely a little intimidating at first when you first get started going into it.
It takes time.
It does, especially because there's so many different products, you don't know what order to go in. There tends to be no real rules to makeup, which can be a little scary for some people too.
And I could say my first few times were terrible. It was horrible. But you learn from that.
What was your first time doing makeup like?
Stressful.
Yeah.
Didn't know what I was doing. I just tried and it was okay at best, but with time and practice, got better at it.
hmm I try to add a little bit of structure to my videos to make it a little bit easier. So, for example, um, I tend to do eyebrows and eyes first before the rest of the face, with the exception of today. Because especially if you make any mistakes, it's so much easier to fix those mistakes and actually um, For example, I show you some life hacks in the eyeshadow video on how to use a makeup wipe to cut your eyeshadow symmetrically to know exactly where to put your eyeliner. And then from there, you can just throw on your mascara, throw on the rest of your face, your base, foundation, and powder, and then powder, contour, powder, blush, and then lip products.
I was gonna say with this one how foundation and concealer makes you look like plastic.
Oh my God, I
I
hate that too.
that's why sometimes I don't use foundation or concealer all the time, some moisturizer
I
and
definitely recommend moisturizer. That's what we did today.
yeah, and, what is it called? Not there's 2 different types of tinted moisturizer. You have the
Like a
ones
BB
that look
cream,
sharp or that look, what's the word? Like plastic, and then there's the one that's kind of
like flat,
flat,
matte, like
yes.
there's matte
Matte,
foundation.
that's what I was looking
Mhm.
for, matte.
I also really like using cream products too. Those are more popular recently because they give you kind of a glow from within kind of look, and you can literally